Discover 4 spine-chilling true stories of cursed encounters and sinister secrets exposed. Lisa stepped out of her shift at the diner, the late-night air biting at her skin. Maplewood felt wrong tonight, too quiet, too still. The flickering street lamps cast eerie shadows that danced across the pavement as she hurried home. A frayed nerve in her chest twisted tighter with each step, and her heart raced like it knew something she didn't. The local diner was usually a comfort, but tonight, trepidation clung to her like a damp cloth. Her key turned in the lock with a click, a familiar sound that usually soothed her. But stepping inside, that comfort vanished. The house felt off. The shadows in the corners loomed larger, pressing in with a weight she couldn't shake. Her phone buzzed violently on the countertop, jolting her from her thoughts. It was a text from Marge, her neighbor. Stay safe. There's been talk of people disappearing. The word struck her like a punch to the gut. Dismissal came naturally. Gossip was perennially woven into the fabric of small-town life. But as she climbed the stairs to bed, she couldn't ignore the sense of dread curling in her stomach. The unsettling silence hung heavy. Then she heard it, the joyous laughter of her son, Jake. It lingered for a second before fading into the shadows. Everything outside felt shrouded in an unnatural stillness, the laughter of the children from the neighborhood replaced by an eerie hush. Lisa glanced nervously at the front door. It was ajar, a silent invitation to the unknown. She was sure she locked it. In the days that followed, paranoia wrapped around her like a cold blanket. Shadows flitted at the edge of her vision, and muted whispers from neighbors were replaced by conspiratorial silence as she walked by. Suspicion ignited each time she saw them gather in hushed groups, apprehension wrapped tightly around her heart. Jake's phone began to buzz with mysterious messages warning him of the Watcher, a figure woven from local folklore who once protected, but now threatened. If you break the rules, the Watcher will take you, the texts warned, filling Lisa with dread. Desperation consumed her as she dove into research about the Watcher. The benign guardian of legend had morphed into something monstrous, twisting the community's bonds. The smiles she once trusted now seemed to distort with hidden malice. She uncovered tales of betrayal and fear that bound the neighborhood in unspoken complicity. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Lisa delved deeper, an ominous note warned her, stay away from the old Elm Street house. But ignoring fear, she ventured there, drawn to the derelict property like a moth to a flame. The air was heavy, thick with an unshakable dread. The house was a ruin, but inside, shadows twisted and whispered, revealing dark remnants of lives once lived. Then it happened. The very fabric of her world trembled as Jake vanished, leaving behind only the echo of his laughter in the darkness. The warmth of home turned to ice. Betrayal and secrets wrapped around her like a noose as the truth clawed at her consciousness. Who could she trust in a community steeped in dark history? And as a familiar voice called her from the shadows, terror gripped her heart. Was it her son, or something far more sinister lurking, waiting to draw her into the darkness? Lisa stood at the threshold, ready to confront the heart of evil should she step into the light or surrender to the abyss. The house creaked around Lisa as she hesitated, her hand frozen above the doorknob. Each tick of the old clock seemed to drum in her ears, urgent and demanding. The shadows shifted, taunting her as she fought the urge to flee. The unmistakable echo of Jake's laughter brushed against her skin, wrapping around her like an icy tendril. "Jake?" She called out, her voice trembling as it echoed into the void. The silence that followed was deafening, a deep void where warmth and light once prevailed. She felt it, the gnawing panic swelling in her chest, an animalistic fear clawing at her instincts. The tales she'd heard, all the cautionary whispers, now danced behind her eyes. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open, a reluctant intrusion into the dark. The air stank of mold and neglect, but beneath that foulness lurked something ancient and malignant. Each step further inside churned her stomach. She was drawn, a marionette, to an unseen puppeteer leading her deeper into the abyss. The living room was engulfed in darkness, the remnants of family portraits peeked out from the walls. Eyes that once sparked joy now stared blankly, painted in agony and loss. A chill swept through the air, causing her to shiver as if the house itself was exhaling an icy breath. "Mom!" The soft croak of Jake's voice meandered through the hallway, barely above a whisper. "Jake!" A wave of relief washed over her, but it was brief. The dire echo pulled at her, beckoning her deeper, twisting hope into fear. As she rounded the corner, she saw it, the staircase leading down into the unknown. A frail light flickered from the basement, slithering up the steps like a snake. Hesitation coiled in her gut, but a deeper instinct propelled her forward. She had to find him. With each step down, the light danced ominously, illuminating strange symbols carved into the walls. They whispered to her a cacophony of warnings, but she silenced them, desperate to reach her son. At the bottom, the basement revealed itself as a ritual space, grim and unsettling. Old furniture and remnants from a bygone era cluttered the room. In the center was a crude altar draped in shadows. And there, in the flickering light, stood Jake, his back turned. "Jake!" She lunged forward, but fear seized her body as something icy gripped her heart. He did not move. Instead, a low, throaty laugh emanated from behind him. The sound was not human. "Mom!" His voice trembled now, a stark contrast to the eerie laughter slithering through the dark. "I can't leave." Lisa's breath hitched as she understood. The community had hidden a darkest truth, a sacrificial bond fed to the Watcher in exchange for safety. The imagined guardian stood before her, a blistering entity of despair and malice that now held Jake in its thrall. "No!" She stumbled back, horrified. "I want to let you take him." Suddenly, the shadows twisted violently, elongating and reaching for her like eager fingers. "You are too late, dear mother," the voice hissed, echoing in a sinister melody. "You have already been claimed." She felt the shadows lash out, cold and dark, entwining her legs, dragging her closer to that dreadful altar. The air thickened, and desperation clawed at her throat. Then, a flicker of movement from Jake. Was he reaching for her? Or was he slipping further away? "Please, Jake." But the darkness around him pulsed, swallowing his figure, filling the room with choking dread. Lisa could see him fading, lost in the embrace of the Watcher's nightmarish presence. As the shadows tightened their grip, Lisa felt her strength wane. They were winning. And in that harrowing moment, clarity struck her. A choice lay before her. To fight or to succumb, sacrifice or survival. But deep down, she knew something. The last breath of hope whispered, maybe this wasn't the end, or was it just the beginning? A scream tore through the air, blending with Jake's fading words. "Mom, don't let them take me." And then, silence. Was there still time to save him? Or had she already lost everything? The grip of the shadows tightened around Lisa's legs, cold tendrils of darkness snaking up her body. She felt panic swell inside her, a frantic rush of adrenaline that clouded her thoughts. "No, no, no!" she shouted, the words bubbling up from a well of raw desperation. She kicked against the shadows, fighting against their suffocating hold, but they drew her inexorably toward the altar, where Jake stood still, his small figure bathed in an otherworldly glow. "Jake!" she screamed, her voice piercing through the darkness. But he seemed to be fading, lost in a world where fear twisted dreams into nightmares. The laughter continued, an unsettling melody filled with malice, wrapping around her spine like a vice. She could feel the icy touch of the unseen entity slithering closer, its breath brushing against her neck, sending shivers coursing through her entire being. Suddenly, the room vibrated with a low growl, reverberating off the walls. The symbols carved into the stone glinted with an unnatural light as the very air thickened with a suffocating weight. "You think you can save him, don't you?" The voice laughed, rich with malice. "But the price has already been paid. Your blood will join the offerings." Lisa's heart raced, wild and frantic. She unconsciously clutched at her neck, feeling for the pendant Jake had given her only days before. The small, simple token held unspoken love and promises of protection. In that moment, she realized she could still fight back. Gripping it tightly, she aimed to sever her bond to the shadows. "No! You will not take us." Drawing on that flicker of hope, she focused on the power of a mother's love, an ancient, fierce force that could defy even the darkest evils. The shadows hissed, pulling back slightly, as if recoiling from the warmth of her newfound resolve. "Jake! Look at me!" Her voice trembled but was fierce, locking with his bright blue eyes for just a moment. "You're stronger than this. Remember our talks? Remember how brave you are?" There was a glimmer in his eyes as the laughter faltered, uncertainty rippling through the entity lurking behind him. "Mom," Jake whispered, but the word trembled with doubt. I can't, I'm trapped." "No. You're not trapped." She took a step forward, ignoring the cold clinging to her skin. The connection between them flickered, flaring with desperation as the altar pulsed ominously. "Think of your favorite place. Remember the blue skies? The trees? Your friends? Fight, Jake. Fight for us." Another howl erupted from the shadows, louder this time, shaking the room. The entity was panicking, and the grip on her legs weakened as her words burrowed deep into Jake's mind, igniting the fire of hope within him. He began to move, however slight, his small fists clenching. But as Lisa pushed against the darkness, the shadows responded. They surged forward, fierce and relentless, dragging her back with a force she couldn't withstand much longer. She gritted her teeth, ready to struggle, to pour every ounce of her being into the fight. Then she felt it, the familiar warmth of Jake's hand slipping into hers. "I'm with you, Mom," he said, a spark of courage igniting in his voice. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned by their united front. Yet the entity roared with fury, a sound that shattered her confidence. "Fools! You dare challenge the inevitable?" Suddenly, the room began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a crack appeared in the ground at the foot of the altar, dark and yawning. Lisa looked into the abyss, heart racing. It beckoned, as if it wanted to swallow them whole and return to the darkness forever, but there was a flicker of something, wisps of light emerging from the cracks, swirling around them. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide. As the shadows began to swirl, a horrible laughter mingled with the chaos. "You can't escape," it called. "You are mine." Lisa steadied herself, heart pounding with urgency. "Hold on tight, Jake. We will not give in." But in the heart of the chaos, as the shadows tightened once more, they felt the pull of the depths growing stronger. Would the light engulf them, too? Or was there hope yet? Then, everything went dark once more, plunging them into an all-consuming silence. What choice would they make in the face of pure terror? Or had it all already been decided? Lisa opened her eyes, and the darkness enveloped her like a damp, heavy blanket. Panic clawed at her throat, but she forced a breath, pushing through the suffocating air. Where was Jake? Had they fallen into the abyss? "Jake!" she shouted, dread wrapping its tendrils around her heart. The silence echoed back, a mocking response that sent a fresh chill through her. No. She couldn't lose him. Not now. Grappling with shadows was one thing, but the weight of this absence felt like a crushing defeat. She stood, each step a battle against an invisible force that clung to her with icy fingers, holding her back like the shifting tides. In the dim light that flickered around her, she saw the altar looming in the distance. The symbols etched into its surface glimmered, mocking her with their dark allure. Resolved, Lisa lurched toward it, heart hammering in her chest. "Jake! She pushed through the darkness, the shadows swirling like angry smoke. Then, a sound reached her, a soft whimper. Relief mingled with fear, it came from behind the altar. She hesitated. Jake? Stepping cautiously, she rounded the stone structure, her pulse racing as her eyes scanned the shadows. At last, she found him, crumpled on the floor, a shadow of his former self. His face was ashen, eyes wide with terror. "Mom, I can't move, it hurts." Fear lodged in Lisa's throat like a dagger. She rushed to his side. "I'm here, sweetheart," she whispered, kneeling beside him. She could feel the echoes of the entity's presence, lingering like a storm cloud above them, waiting to strike. "What is happening?" Jake's voice quaked, and she could see him trembling. "I don't know," Lisa said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But we need to be together. Hold my hand." He reached out, fingers brushing against hers, warmth flickering back to life. She could feel the bond pulling them back into the light, igniting her resolve. As their fingers intertwined, a surge of energy pulsed between them, warding off the oppressive shadows like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Focus, Jake," she urged, fighting against the creeping darkness that whispered doubt. Suddenly, a guttural roar shattered the stillness. The entity reared up, its form coiling and shifting, a mass of fury cloaked in shadow. "You dare defy me?" It thundered, its voice echoing like rolling thunder. "Your time is over." The altar shuddered beneath them, cracking as shadows poured from it like boiling tar. Lisa tightened her grip on Jake's hand. "Don't let go. Remember the light when we were at the lake? The way the sun glimmered on the water? We can do this." But the shadows were relentless, slamming against them with a force that knocked the breath from her lungs. Glancing at Jake, she saw the determination flicker in his blue eyes. "We can do this, Mom," he shouted, his voice rising above the chaos, now filled with an unbreakable spirit. For a moment, a glimmer of light emerged from the cracks in the altar, swirling around them like a protective cocoon. Lisa felt strength flow into her from that light, her heart igniting with hope. "Together, Jake!" she cried as the shadows lunged. They both shut their eyes, feeling that warmth wrap around them. With a fierce shout, Lisa concentrated on the power of their bond, channeling love, hope, and the fierce instinct to protect her child. As the energy surged, she could almost see the shadows recoiling, hissing as if they were burnt, but then, that faint whisper of dread returned, and the shadows began to congeal, looming larger and darker. "You will lose everything," it snarled, the fabric of reality beginning to fracture around them. Just when it felt as if they might tumble into the void, a doorway opened behind them, a crack of blinding light cutting through the shadows. Was it a way out? "Mom, we have to leap," Jake urged, eyes wide with terror and excitement. "Now." Lisa nodded, heart racing. They had everything to fight for. She took a deep breath. "On 3, Jake. 1, 2, 3. They jumped together, arms outstretched. As they soared through the air, the shadows surged behind them, seeking to snatch them back. But they could see the light growing brighter, inviting them in. Would they escape the clutches of darkness, or would the shadows drag them back into despair? The answer waited in that blinding light, but they were not safe yet. As they hurtled through the light, Lisa felt the familiar warmth engulf them, a promise of safety, but the shadows clawed at her heels, furious and relentless. What felt like air transformed into a thick, gelatinous substance swirling with the darkness, trying to pull them back, and all around, she could hear the echoes of twisted laughter. "Hold on, Mom!" Jake shouted, and the ferocity in his voice struck a chord deep inside her. She squeezed his hand tighter, desperate not to lose him again. They were so close, so tantalizingly close to freedom. Suddenly, the bright light flickered just once like the dying gasp of a flame. Fear crept up Lisa's spine. "No, no. Not now." She pushed her legs harder, every muscle screaming as she strained against the pull of darkness. The shadows roared, a sound so primal it sent icy tendrils down her back. "You can't escape me." The entity's voice crashed over them like thunder, sending vibrations through her bones. She felt its presence lurking, waiting for their moment of weakness. With a final burst of energy, they tore through the light. The world shifted violently as the door slammed shut behind them, leaving a muffled screech of rage echoing back into the abyss. They landed on cool grass, soft beneath them, with the smell of earth and freedom filling their lungs. Lisa gasped for breath, shock racing through her. For a brief moment, relief washed over her. But then, reality settled in. "No!" Jake's voice broke the silence, his eyes wide, scanning the desolate landscape around them. "Mom, we're not alone." Lisa bolted upright, scanning their surroundings. They were in a forest, but not a forest she recognized. It seemed twisted, the trees grotesquely bent, their gnarled branches clawing at the darkening sky. The stars that peeked through the canopy twinkled with an ominous glint, whispering secrets in a language she didn't understand. "Where are we?" Lisa's heart thudded loudly, fear gripping her once again as shadows began skirting between the trees, prowling like wild beasts. Hopelessness threatened to sink into her gut, but she pushed it aside. They had to find a way back, away from the darkness closing in. "I don't know, but it feels alive. It's watching us." Jake's voice trembled, contrasting with the darkness spreading around them. And just beyond the clearing, something shifted, a giant figure, its outline blurred and indistinct, weaving between the trunks of the trees. "Mom, what is that?" Panic flooded Jake's voice, and Lisa's blood ran cold. She had to protect her son. The thought of the entity's promises haunted her. Would it find them here too? "Stay close, don't move," she whispered, adrenaline surging as she instinctively positioned herself in front of Jake. The giant shadow flickered again, seeming almost interested, as if toying with them. "Come play with us," echoed a eerie child's voice from the depths of the forest. Chills washed over Lisa. This wasn't just a forest, it was a trap, a realm crafted from fears and weaknesses. "We need to go," she urged, pulling Jake back as the trees began to sway, almost as if responding to some unseen force. Every second felt like an eternity, and the darkness weighed heavy on them. She could sense something gathering strength in the gloom, circling them, waiting to strike. Just when she thought they were retreating, another shadow burst forth, a figure more defined this time, a child, face pale but eyes gleaming with knowing malice. "You can't leave, not yet." Lisa's heart raced. The dark whispers twisted and wrapped around her mind. The shadows could sense their fear, could sense her weakness. "Run!" she shouted, not knowing what would come next. In that moment of desperation, they bolted deeper into the trees, the shadows hot on their trail. What horrors awaited them in the heart of this cursed forest? Would they face their darkest fears, or succumb to the malevolence lurking in the depths? The forest seemed to breathe, its haunting whispers entwining with the rustling leaves. Lisa and Jake ran, panic fueling their legs as they darted through the underbrush, the shadows shifting like hungry wolves behind them. Every sound amplified, the snapping of twigs underfoot, the low growls in the distance, and the pulse of her own heart, racing, pounding against her ribs. "Mom, it's getting closer." Jake's voice trembled, cutting through the air like glass. They skidded around a gnarled tree, its bark blackened and slick, as if it feasted on despair. "Keep moving," she cried, determination mingling with terror. But where were they even running to? The forest closed in on all sides, twisting and turning into a maze that seemed choreographed with their deepest fears. Suddenly, the child's laughter echoed again, twisting through the trees, mocking and sweet, making Lisa's skin crawl. "You can't escape," it taunted. "We only want to play." "Who are you?" Jake yelled, his voice cracking, but the forest swallowed his question, the silence acting as a suffocating blanket. "Just keep running," Lisa shouted back, heart thudding like a war drum as she glimpsed a flicker of white darting between the trees. It was too fast to be a normal child. A frenzied chill gnawed at her thoughts. What kind of childhood playmates lurked in this realm? They stumbled upon a clearing, but it offered no solace. It was a patch of ground encircled by trees, each one bearing twisted faces plunging from the bark, eyes wide and mournful, as if trapped in a never-ending scream. Lisa felt her throat constrict. "Mom, look!" Jake pointed, fear lighting his eyes. The center of the clearing housed a wooden swing, old and creaking, swaying without wind. "It's moving on its own." The shadows circled in tighter, thrumming with a pulsing energy that felt like a living thing. The air thickened, Lisa felt it in her throat, pressing down as if to silence them. Goosebumps covered her arms. "I don't like this," Jake said, gripping her hand tighter. "Me neither," she admitted, but they had no choice. Lisa felt something deep within her unraveling, an instinct that screamed to stay away. Yet, Jake was already pulling her toward the swing, drawn as if by invisible strings. "Mom, let us try it. Just once." "No. It's not safe." But he broke free, and before Lisa could react, he was sitting on the swing, his innocence enticing the darkness. The moment he settled, a gust of wind swept through the clearing, and the swing began to swing higher and higher, as if powered by unseen hands. Jake's laughter, once bright, twisted into something dark and eerie. "Look, Mom. This is fun." "No, Jake. Get off." Panic bled into her voice, but it was drowned by the child's laughter. The shadows danced around them, celebrating their impending doom. The swing creaked louder, and the distorted figures began to emerge from the trees, children with hollow eyes and elongated limbs. Their mouths stretched into grins that seemed unnatural, echoing the laughter that grew ever shriller. "Join us, you belong here forever," they chorused, the words dripping with a sinister sweetness. Lisa felt a tug, a pull from the dark entities around them, a siren-esque call promising safety and solace in their twisted embrace. A chilling realization dawned upon her: this was not just a game. They were the players, caught in a cruel jest of terror. "Jake! Get off now!" she shouted, but the shadows surged toward him, pressing against her like a boiling wave. And then, a shattering silence fell, and the world held its breath. Lisa reached out, feeling the final threads of hope fraying at her fingertips. A figure stepped forward, a woman, pale and translucent, gliding above the ground. She locked eyes with Lisa, sorrow mingled with fury, and whispered, "He must choose before it's too late." Time froze. What choice lay before Jake? In that moment, as shadows encroached like an engulfing tide, the question loomed darkly over them: would he choose to stay, or would he fight for his freedom? The forest held its breath, waiting. Tension hung thick in the clearing, suffocating Lisa as she watched Jake swing higher, laughter fading into a guttural cackle. The gleeful spark in his eyes was drowning, replaced by something she couldn't recognize. The other children closed in, their laughter a sickening chorus that twisted her stomach. "Make him choose," one of the hollow-eyed children shouted, creeping closer, its elongated fingers curling like roots hungry for soil. "Jake, please. You have to get off," Lisa pleaded, her words barely a whisper, swallowed by the relentless giggles. He looked back at her, confusion etched on his small face, like he was trying to wake from a dream. But the white flash darting among the trees caught his eye. "Just a little longer, Mom. I want to play." Her heart sank as the shadows danced and wriggled around him, drawing nearer. Each flicker of movement felt like fingers brushing against her skin. They were circling like vultures, waiting. The pale woman still loomed, her gaze piercing, urging Lisa to act. "Jake! You must decide. Now!" Lisa screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. The childlike creatures mimicked her, their haunting voices echoing, "Now! Now! Now!" Suddenly, the swing jolted, and Jake was tossed from it. He tumbled to the ground, landing in a heap. For a moment, hope ignited within Lisa. But as he rose, his eyes were clouded, unfocused, a film of shadow glazing over their bright innocence. "Jake?" she whispered, stepping forward, but the forest roared in response, a deafening sound of rage. The trees swayed violently, their tortured faces twisting into expressions of anger. "Join us!" they cried, voices rising into a malevolent crescendo. The wind howled, snapping branches. Jake stumbled backward, hands grasping the air as if trying to catch the invisible threads that bound him to this nightmarish realm. "Mommy!" he cried, but it resonated differently, echoing like a call for help twisted by fear. In that bloody moment, Lisa felt something shift within Jake as the shadows extended their reach, pulling at him, tugging at his lost innocence. The pull was so strong, the air trembled. "No!" She dashed forward, desperation raging in her veins. An aura of dread wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Each step felt like wading through thick mud. She could feel the eyes of the entities upon her, their laughter a cruel wind that chilled her bones. "Jake! Look at me! Fight!" His eyes blazed, flickering like a candle in a gust briefly illuminated before being snuffed out by encroaching darkness. "Join us, Jake forever," they whispered, entangled in his thoughts. Lisa felt a surge of anger. "You want to take him?" she shouted, her voice strong and steady, a sliver of defiance amidst the chaos. With the pulse of her heart echoing in her ears, she reached for him, her fingers brushing against his limp hand. The shadows recoiled slightly, as though her love was an unexpected weapon. "Choose, Jake," she said fiercely. "Fight for us." But just as hope flickered, the pale woman stepped forth again, her mouth curling into a knowing grin. "His choice will seal your fate," the laughter crescendoed, a thrumming symphony of despair and delight. Lisa's heart pounded, she could feel time slipping. What would Jake decide? The weight of their future pressed heavily, the air electric with dread, waiting. Jake, please, would he choose her? Would they escape? In that moment, the trees closed in, shadows swallowing the light, a darkness that promised nothing but dread. And just before the world went completely black, the haunting question lodged in Lisa's mind: how far would they go to remain together? "Mom!" Jake's voice echoed, teetering between choice and fate, hanging desperately in the gloom. A split second hung in the air, then, silenced the dreadful anticipation of a choice not yet revealed. A heavy silence descended, enveloping Lisa like a shroud. She felt the chill seep into her bones as she watched Jake's small form wrestle with the beckoning shadows. The laughter had died down, leaving only the eerie whispers that slithered through the trees like half-formed thoughts. "Jake!" she screamed, her voice hoarse with panic. "Please!" But her pleas fell flat against the impending darkness. Jake stood frozen, his body trembling as if caught between two worlds. The hollow-eyed children stepped closer, their faces twisted in anticipation. More than curiosity, it was hunger, a primal urge to consume what remained of his innocence. "Join us!" they chanted, and the pale woman tilted her head, her gaze piercing. Shadows coiled tighter around Jake, a noose tightening around hope. "What do I do?" he whispered, confusion mingling with fear. His voice was small, a fragile thing struggling against the enormity of the choice laid before him. He glanced at Lisa, desperation pooling in his eyes. "Fight it, Jake. You love me, remember?" she cried, the words pouring from her as if they could create a barrier strong enough to save him. But the wind howled louder, drowning her out, mocking her. "Do it, Jake!" the other children urged, their voices slithering like serpents through the air. "I don't want to. I want to go home." Jake's plea sounded small, lost in the crescendo of chaos surrounding him. The shadows rippled, and in that moment, Lisa saw it, the dark flicker of a choice forming in Jake's mind, the sad pull of temptation battling against the love he knew. Could he really make the right choice? Could he defy the sinister promises whispering in his ear? In a last desperate attempt, Lisa lunged forward, the darkness hissing in protest as she edged closer. She could feel their cold breath dragging against her skin, trying to pull her back. Each inch felt like a fight, her heart raced like a drum echoing through the void. "Remember the stories I told you, Jake? The knights who fought against the beasts. You are braver than this," she shouted, reaching for him again, her fingers just barely grazing his. The children shrieked in indignation, their laughter turning feral, echoing throughout the clearing, a reminder of their twisted game. "Fight for us, Jake," they screeched, their faces contorting in delight. Jake wavered, flickering between shadow and light, innocence and darkness. "Mom," his voice trembled, caught in the tangles of fear. Suddenly, the pale woman stepped closer, the air thickening around them. "The choice must be made, or else both of you shall stay here forever." Her voice was a soft hiss, promising a fate worse than death, a life in torment. Lisa's heart sank. Forever? The word hung heavy, a noose of despair tightening around her throat. "No. You can choose love, Jake. I know you can." Her voice wavered, but there was an edge of steel beneath the fear. With one last heave of determination, the shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing the conflict within Jake. The darkness seemed to hesitate, waiting. Lisa gasped, hoping against hope that her words could light a path through the thick gloom. "Choose wisely, my boy," the pale woman whispered, and just as the tension reached its unbearable peak, Jake's gaze locked onto hers, a flicker of clarity cutting through the shadows. Would he choose love, or would he surrender to this darkness that offered him a strange sense of belonging? The forest held its breath, the air taut with unspoken truths and lethal intent. "Mom." Jake began, the words trailing off, his choice still teetering on a knife's edge, and Lisa felt the world fracture, the shadows closing in tighter, threatening to swallow them whole. Then, with a heart-stopping rush, he took a step closer to her, the darkness swirling in confusion, as if it had not expected this move. "Choose or lose," the voices sung menacingly, their chorus growing louder, demanding, awaiting the inevitable outcome. The chilling question hung in the air, the silence pulsing, waiting for the moment that would change everything. Would Jake defy the shadows, or would he succumb to the darkness? Time stretched unbearably, and in the depths of the night, shadows whispered sinister thoughts. What if love isn't enough? Jake's eyes searched Lisa's, a storm of emotions battling within him. A flicker of recognition awoke, urging him to break free from the dark grasp that threatened to consume him. He glanced back at the children, their hollow laughter echoing in his ears, hungry and eager, their shadows writhing in the corner of his vision. "Choose. Choose us," they shrieked, the words twisting the air around him into a noose of despair and longing. "Please, Jake," Lisa cried, moving closer, stretching out her hand. Shadows whipped around her, tugging as if trying to push her away. Each step toward her felt monumental, fraught with peril. I want to go home." Jake's voice quivered, a thread of hope woven into his desperate plea. The pale woman sneered, a smile that revealed teeth too sharp, too white against the darkness. "Home?" she taunted, her voice low and silky. "What awaits you there? Do you think they would understand you, know you, love you like we do? Join us, Jake. Embrace your true self." The weight of her words pressed down like a thick fog. Her gaze, chilling and magnetic, drew him closer to the edge where light met shadow. For a moment, he teetered. What if she was right? What if back home, he was just lost? "Jake! Focus on me." Lisa's voice sliced through the thickening air. She steadied herself, pushing against the tide of darkness that sought to drown her resolve. The blind panic roiling in her chest forced a new determination to the surface. "Remember when we baked cookies together? How you crafted that little paper crown? You love your family. You love me. Don't let them take that from you." Jake's breath trembled. Memories cascaded, bright and loving, vivid against the dim horror surrounding him. He could almost taste the sweetness of warm cookies, smell the cinnamon lingering in the air, feel the laughter bouncing off the walls of their home. I do love you," he shouted, defiance rising in his throat. But the shadows let out shrill screeches, bouncing through the trees, each sound crackling with fury. "Foolish child. You cannot resist the call. You will remain ours." They lunged, fingers stretching out toward Jake like blackened vines, each inch closer, clawing at the light in his eyes. "No!" Jake exclaimed, shaking his head, his small frame quivering with fight. "I want tea." The pale woman stepped forward, menacingly beautiful. "Then you must suffer the consequences of denial." Her voice curled around his mind like tendrils of smoke, intoxicating and lethal. With renewed strength, Jake took another step towards Lisa, the darkness around him shuddering in vexation as he broke the grasp. "I want to leave." The children recoiled, their faces warped with rage. The groans of the earth echoed as the shadows lunged again, desperate and wild. "Choose, Jake. Stay with us." They surged forward, but a sudden gust of wind ripped through the forest, throwing them back. For the first time, Lisa felt a spark of power in the air, sharp and electrifying. "Fight! Fight for us!" The voices became a cacophony of desperate shrieks, blending into a whirl of madness. Determination surged in Jake's veins. He reached for Lisa, her hand finally clasping his, weaving warmth into the cold fabric of despair. "I choose love," he declared. The moment stilled, the world pressing down, the shadows raging, shrill and furious. The forest shook, branches creaking in protest, the atmosphere buzzing as if lights were flickering back on. But the pale woman raised her arms, summoning dark forces that rippled like a wave towards them, more powerful than before. "What have you done?" she hissed, her face twisting in fury. Lisa's heart raced as she held tighter to Jake, bracing for the imminent collision of light and darkness. "Don't let go," she urged, feeling the malevolent energy course through the air. Then, just as it seemed the darkness would engulf them, their clasped hands glowed with a brilliant white. The shadows recoiled in horror, and a blinding light burst between them, splitting the darkness like fine silk. But even as they began to break through, a chilling realization settled over. "Lisa. What if this isn't the end?" she thought desperately, fear twining through her mind. Was this flash of light leading them to safety or deeper into the horror? The shadows swirled violently, the dark chorus swirling their menacing verses around them. "Fates will align." The pale woman screeched, retreating, but her eyes remained fixed on them with unyielding malice. "This isn't over. You cannot escape your destiny." With a final blinding flash, they felt a tug, and then, the forest was no more. The landscape shifted eerily, blurring into a dizzying scene, and before they knew it, they were surrounded by an unsettling stillness. "What now?" Jake whispered, trembling, but deeper shadows lingered, waiting for their moment to strike, and the air once more buzzed with the whisper of dark promises. Where would they land? And was the darkness truly vanquished, or had it simply transformed? The chilling sensation of eyes watching from every direction gripped Lisa's heart as she realized the shadows might not be finished with them yet. "Jake," she whispered. "We have to run." But as they took a step forward into the uncharted darkness, the whisper of the shadows echoed hauntingly. "Welcome, trespassers. Your true nightmare begins now." A horrible stillness wrapped around Lisa and Jake. The air buzzed thick with anticipation, poisonous expectation hanging over them like a storm cloud. Lisa held her breath. What had they stepped into? As shadows danced around them, suffocating whispers brushed against her skin, and she felt every pitiful heartbeat of their fear. "Mom. I don't like this," Jake murmured, grip tightening on her hand, his tiny body trembling against the looming uncertainties. "Neither do I, but together we can find a way out," Lisa croaked, trying to bolster her own courage as much as his. The shadows encircled them, a tide of darkness pushing against their backs, seeking to pull them deeper into a chilling night that promised nothing but despair. But what if we can't? Jake's voice shook, tinged with that raw, innocent fear only children can express. It twisted painfully in Lisa's heart, making her want to wipe that doubt away with a fierce mama bear resolve. Listen to me, Jake. We've already fought so hard. This isn't the end. She planted her feet, a subtle defiance igniting within her chest. They can only win if we give in. We're stronger than the shadows, remember our light. A tremor of hope flickered between them, the bond of their love illuminating the darkness, if only slightly. But the darkness responded, curling inward, shifting shapes that pretended to lurk behind them. The children's laughter, once whimsical, now came in disjointed bursts, filled with malice and longing. Stay with us, they chanted, their twisted forms swirling in and out of sight, phantoms grasping at reality, drawing closer. We want to play. Play? Lisa snarled, her voice rising above the cacophony. This is no game. With sudden urgency, she pulled Jake further into the murk, searching desperately for a path, a sign, anything that could lead them out. The shadows thrummed, dark tendrils reaching out, almost coaxing, as if the forest itself wanted them to surrender. Jake! She cried, heart racing. Remember the time at the lake? The sun? The trees? How beautiful it was. Yes. I remember. His innocent face illuminated with recognition, the glow pushing back against the encircling darkness. The grip of despair slackened, just temporarily, as Jake's memories painted vivid images flashing like fireflies in the night. Suddenly, a flicker raced through the darkness, an echo of that cherished day revealed in a flash of light. Trees transformed into statues, confounding figures like sentinels standing guard around them. There. We need to get through. Lisa urged, emotions thick and thorny in her throat as she pointed toward the shimmering, shifting path illuminated by the dim light. But shadows stirred angrily, boiling forth in a blazing tide of fury. They shrieked in thunderous unison, "You cannot pass. Together, remember." Jake echoed, determination crystallizing between them, bright in defiance of the looming terror. With a firm grasp still on each other's hands, they surged forward, jettisoning fear and wrapping themselves in the warmth of their love. The shadows tried to coil around them, but the potency of their bond blazed like a shield, pushing the darkness back. As they collided through the malevolence, the shimmering path engulfed them in brilliant light worse than the flash of midday sun. Jake! Lisa shouted, pulling him into her chest, feeling the warmth of the light washing over them. They were falling, twisting through empty space, floating on the edge of clarity. What is happening? He cried out, eyes wide with bewilderment. I don't know, but we keep fighting. Thrumming energy enveloped them, swirling against dark forces, releasing the pulse of hope stronger than the shadows. With sheer determination, Lisa focused all her energy on a single thought: we're going home. A blinding flash shot through them, a release from darkness, pulling them toward the surface as the shadows screamed. The world fell away in shatters of light and darkness, reality collapsing into itself until they landed roughly on familiar, sun-warmed grass, the sweet scent of earth and flowers filling their lungs. Lisa blinked up into the golden light. Jake? She whispered, lifting her head. Mom! The sound of his laughter floated through the air, joyous and bubbling with youthful exuberance. He was here, safe and unharmed, bouncing on the grass by her side. Eyes wide with wonder, he grinned, his innocence shining against the backdrop of their escape. Emotion swelled within Lisa, tears streaming unbidden down her cheeks, mingling with laughter. We did it, honey. We're home. But as they stood there, soaking in the warmth of the sunlight, a dark sweep of shadow rushed across the yard. With urgency and dread, Lisa turned, gripping Jake's hand firmly. What was that? She asked, scanning the perimeter with her heart pounding wildly. From the fringes of the trees, a pale figure beckoned, a glimmering apparition she recognized from the forest. The old spirit floated into view, sorrow drenching its features, and it whispered with a voice that echoed through her mind, "The darkness will never truly vanish, dear child. It will linger, waiting to return. But you have the strength to refuse it." Lisa felt the warning sting like shards of glass, sharp and hateful. "What should we do?" "Be vigilant, let your love be your light. It will guide you when shadows try to embrace you again." The supernatural essence faded gently, leaving behind a sense of poignant loss, a promise tinged with foreboding. Lisa turned to Jake, taking a deep breath, a fierce resolve knitting itself in her heart. "Together, we will face whatever comes," she assured him fiercely, squeezing his hands in hers. The warmth of hope ignited again, dazzling and unfaltering. United by their shared journey and a fierce bond, they stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever awaited them on the horizon. Whatever darkness lingered, they would fight against it together. And just as the sun began to set, casting golden hues across the horizon, Lisa smiled at Jake. A sense of fierce protection and warmth enveloped them. Home was where they were, together against whatever would come next. This is the moment for you to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel now, so you don't miss the next thrilling exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Your engagement is crucial. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think about the ending? Let us know, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this heart-pounding conclusion. Together, let us spread the word.